Is the Israeli Prime Minister trying to sabotage the fragile truce by expanding the war beyond Lebanon and striking directly at Iran, even as a ceasefire between Washington and Tehran takes effect? On the very first night of the ceasefire, multiple blasts and the activation of air defense systems were reported in parts of Iran, fueling claims that Israel was still carrying out attacks despite the supposed pause in hostilities. Critics say Israel is now going after Iran's capital and other strategic sites, turning President Donald Trump's two-week truce announcement into a joke on the ground and raising questions about who is actually observing the deal. In response to what it called blatant violations, Iran has once again moved to shut the Strait of Hormuz, accusing Netanyahu of refusing to stop the war and warning that tanker traffic will be brought to a standstill. At the same time, Israel has launched one of its largest coordinated strikes on Lebanon, hitting around 100 targets in just 10 minutes and insisting these operations are not covered by the ceasefire arrangement with Iran. All this has led to growing criticism that Trump's two-week ceasefire could not even survive a single day in practice, as Netanyahu continues to push ahead with massive strikes that risk blowing up the entire deal. Fresh explosions were reported in multiple Iranian cities on the very first night of the ceasefire, raising immediate doubts about how long the fragile truce can hold. Blasts and associated air defense activity were heard across several areas of Iran on the night of April 8th to 9th, with local outlets describing repeated booms and tracer fire in the sky. Around midnight, residents in the Mershur area of Karaj, west of Tehran, reported 3 distinct explosions, suggesting possible interception attempts or strikes in the vicinity. At roughly the same time, a loud blast was also reported from the southern port city of Bushehr, home to key energy and strategic infrastructure. These explosions were highlighted by Iran International and other outlets as they unfolded, underscoring just how fragile and contested the new ceasefire arrangement remains. Earlier in the evening, at about 8 p.m. on April 8th, residents in Tehran said they heard air defense fire over the capital, with footage showing flashes and the sound of anti-aircraft guns. People living in Tehran's Shari Ray and Masudia neighborhoods reported defensive fire overhead, indicating that air defense batteries around the city had been activated. Around the same time, air defense systems were also switched on at the Montazer Game Power Plant in Fardis, a critical facility in Alborz province just outside the capital. Witnesses said the defensive systems at this key power plant remained active for roughly 10 to 15 minutes, suggesting a sustained alert rather than a brief, single engagement. Less than 24 hours after the US announced a ceasefire with Iran, Iranian state media reported that the Strait of Hormuz had been shut down again, reversing a key condition of the truce. The complete and safe reopening of the strait was President Trump's stated condition for the two-week ceasefire, tying the pause in US strikes directly to the free passage of oil shipments. The stunning move came less than 24 hours after the US and Israel publicly backed the truce talks with Iran on March 7th to 8th, raising immediate questions about the deal's stability. The closure happened despite earlier indications that Iran would reopen the vital shipping route as part of the broader agreement, at least for the duration of the two-week pause. On the night of March 8th to 9th, Iran's press TV reported that an oil tanker was turned away near the strait, underscoring the tightening of maritime controls in the region. The tanker, named Aurora, made an abrupt 180-degree turn at sea and instead returned toward the Persian Gulf rather than continuing through the strait. The US government has stated that the Aurora is a sanctioned vessel, alleging it is used to transport Iranian oil outside the usual commercial channels. According to reports citing the semi-official Fars news agency, Iran's decision to close the strait was framed as a response to Israeli military operations in Lebanon, not solely to the ceasefire terms. Israel has intensified its strikes on Lebanon in recent days, saying it is targeting Hezbollah positions and infrastructure linked to Iranian support. Reports indicate that Israel launched around 100 suspected strikes on Lebanese territory within a 10-minute window on April 8th, suggesting a concentrated, high-intensity campaign. These strikes in Lebanon have reportedly killed over 110 civilians and wounded more than 800 others, drawing sharp condemnation from humanitarian groups. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Vice President J.D. Vance have both stated that the America-Iran truce does not apply to Lebanon. The situation has highlighted growing disparities between the sides over whether the ceasefire includes the Lebanon front or only applies to Iran directly. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Vice President J.D. Vance have both stated that the America-Iran truce does not apply to Lebanon, treating Hezbollah as a separate conflict. In his public remarks, Netanyahu also warned that Israel could resume full-scale war with Iran at any moment in order to complete the original war goals.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. Now, that said, the Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful.
Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the United States must act on its commitments, including any understanding about the situation in Lebanon, if the broader truce is to be credible. At the same time, US President Trump has openly backed Israel's continued military actions in Lebanon, reiterating that Hezbollah was not included in the deal. Trump described the situation in Lebanon as a separate skirmish, downplaying its link to the wider Iran-US ceasefire even as attacks continue across the region. Israel carried out a massive bombardment on Lebanon on April 8, according to reports by Iranian outlet Press TV and regional media. Local reporting said Israel launched at least 100 separate strikes on Lebanese territory in just under 10 minutes. The attacks were described as the heaviest Israeli bombardment on Lebanon since the early weeks of March. Lebanese media reported that at least 80 people were killed and around 200 others wounded in Beirut alone. Israel also struck densely populated areas including Saida, Nabatea, and parts of the Bekaa region, according to Al Mayadeen and other outlets. Hospitals across Lebanon issued urgent calls for blood donations as casualty numbers mounted and facilities became overwhelmed. The Israeli military said Hezbollah has vacated much of its traditional stronghold in Beirut's southern suburbs, known as Dahia. According to the IDF, the group is repositioning toward northern Beirut and into more mixed residential areas in the city.
The IDF attacked hundreds of Hezbollah terrorists in a surprise strike at headquarters throughout Lebanon. This is the largest concentrated blow Hezbollah has suffered since the Pagers operation. We insisted on separating the arenas between Iran and Lebanon in order to change the reality in Lebanon and remove threats from the residents in the north. We warned Naim Qassem, Hezbollah's Secretary General, that Hezbollah would pay a very high price for attacking Israel on behalf of Iran, and today we fulfilled another step in the promise. Also, the personal turn of the terrorist Naim Qassem will come. IDF forces continue to operate vigorously in Lebanon to ward off threats and thwart Hezbollah's capabilities, in accordance with the policy we have established. We promise to bring security to the residents in the north, and that is exactly what we will do.